The Cleveland Browns, in less than 72 hours, will play a game against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. And as fans are still upset that the Browns didn't pull out a victory this past Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals, rightfully so. If they can go into Baltimore and only lose by 1 point on Sunday, that should be a showing that every Browns fan will be excited about. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. For all the support we get here at the OBR, whether it's through the written content at theobr.com, we are thankful. We are grateful to all of you. Please make sure you're looking into those VIP memberships, the insider forums, the Ask the Insiders. Of course, your VIP subscription gets bundled with a subscription, of course, to Paramount Plus. Certainly a BOGO of a deal. Go ahead and jump all over that. The continued support for the OBR streaming network beginning every night at 6 p.m. Eastern with Browns 3D, host of shows throughout the week. Debuting some new stuff this week, of course. On Monday night, the Gang of Three seemed like that did really well. You guys like that combination of Fred, Pete, and of course Lane Atkins. I'm sorry, Barry, Pete, and Lane Atkins. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that. Just trying to give you guys as much good, solid content as we can. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Of course, make sure you are subscribed to the OBR over on Twitch. Now, this game certainly, is getting some, little momentum, little pizzazz, little sizzle to it. The Ravens, and, I spoke yesterday on it. If you want to troll the Cleveland Browns, that's fine, but don't act like you're not. Just own it, man up, be a man about it. You can tell the Browns and the fact that there's a heavy point spread to this game don't care. And, I'm not one where I think that anything the Cleveland Browns are saying is necessarily bulletin board material. Anyone that, bulletin board material is not something that goes on in the NFL. These guys are making millions of dollars. Nobody cares what anybody else says about them. They will play and try to destroy each other on the field because that's what they do each and every Sunday. Bulletin board material stuff's for, I don't even know if it exists in college anymore, maybe high school. But, asked, Grant Delpit how hard it is, to tackle Derrick Henry. And, do you expect Grant Delpit to, go up there and, give you 5 sentences of just, glazing on, the attributes of Derrick Henry? No. And Grant Delpit said, no, it's not that hard. Probably is though for us, right? But asked about the line on the game, and whoop-de-doo was Grant Delpit's response. Trying to make a team, admit that they might be inferior, admit that they might not be as good as the team they're about to play. They're not going to do that. Who would? Yeah, at the end of the day, end of Sunday, they lose. Hey, man, they're a good team. Played really well today. We could have done some things better. It's the way it goes. And it's not like this isn't a team the Browns are not familiar with. I mean, they play this team 2 times a year, every single year. So they're well aware and, well of the understanding of just what exactly the Baltimore Ravens are about. And Denzel Ward, another one that spoke, whatever. I mean, it's just, if nobody wants to give us any credit, then nobody give us any credit. These guys are just going to go into this understanding the importance of this game and, give it their all. For me, that's why, I think I'm putting a little bit of extra importance on this game because, I feel that the Ravens are definitely trolling them by, having this 30th anniversary, having Ozzie Newsome as one of the top guests of honors. I absolutely feel like it's a troll job by Baltimore, and that's fine. Obviously, Baltimore should be favored in this game, whether or not it should be to the point that the spread is at. That's what it is. I don't care. But I want to see how a Browns team like this reacts in this situation. You know, if you are aggravated, which I think they have a right to be, if you feel like you're being trolled a little bit, which I 100% agree they are, then make it count. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely go out there and make it count because, if you get trolled and you're getting, people making this sound like, it's Appalachian State, versus Ohio State. It's an NFL game. It's week 2. A lot of things can happen. I'm sure Joe Flacco is probably really looking forward to getting to play in that building one more time. But if all this is going on and, everybody not giving them a chance, the Ravens kind of maybe, having some fun at their expense, make it happen. Go in there and, prove it, because nothing would be better than, having them on the back of their heels late in the fourth quarter, or God forbid they throw this lovely 30th anniversary party and they walk off the field a bunch of chumps and losers. So, if this is, the way it's being viewed, you know, for me, this is, in my opinion, it's very important how the Browns come out in this game. You know, if you feel like you're kind of, disrespected, if you feel like you're being trolled, well, you got to change. You got a chance to absolutely change that narrative and go out and do it. And man, would that send the AFC North, into a little bit of a, shock shelter if after week 2, the Baltimore Ravens, found their way to be 0-2. Quishon Judkins, certainly been a man, of various locations of recently. But the Florida days are over. Into Cleveland to sign the contract. 1-day hiatus out to New York City, but finally taking his first practice for the Cleveland Browns today since minicamp. I said yesterday, and look, it's Thursday, and this is Judkins' first practice since June. So almost 3 months. I don't think, and just the little that was available, I don't think you even bother putting Judkins on the roster this weekend. I just, it's a very, very good opponent in the Baltimore Ravens. And if there's any doubt, any which way, that you think he's not ready, then you just don't do it. You're putting yourself, in a position for him to have a bad day, for your offense to have a bad day. The juice right now is kind of going pretty good offensively for the Browns. Things certainly could have been better on Sunday, but, this is a franchise that the first 3 touches of the game on Sunday all went to rookies. The first touchdown of the 2025 season for the Cleveland Browns was scored by another rookie. That's 4 skill players already on the offensive side of the ball that have gotten a decent taste of the action. And you still are working Quishon Judkins into the fold, which will most likely be game 3 at home against the Green Bay Packers. Now, I understand the excitement, the enthusiasm, and the temptation to just get him out there. But, there's a lot of the playbook that I'm sure was not completely installed by the time Judkins left us after minicamp. Where has he been, 3 months as far as working out, and where is his body in regards to playing an NFL game? And keep in mind, he hasn't played an NFL game yet. So he doesn't maybe necessarily know what level he needs to be in physically to be able to go on Sunday. You can get through one more week of Ford and, Raheem Rocket Sanders and, of course, Dylan Sampson. And then, you reevaluate next week where you're at, by Thursday, Friday. And, if Judkins is ready to go, let's get him in and, home game against the Green Bay Packers in week 3. I know, and I've been listening. There are, a lot of people that I think are putting more on Judkins's back than I think maybe we can expect him to carry at this point. Again, we have not even seen him take a preseason carry, let alone an NFL regular season carry. And it's not a knock on Judkins. I think it's a lot of people's desperation for the juice that might be needed for the running game, to hopefully start looking like the running game we've grown accustomed to during the Kevin Stefanski regime. I said yesterday, I don't know when Judkins comes back how the roster is going to work out at the running back position. One thing I am not ruling against is Raheem Sanders being moved off the 53-man roster with the roll of the dice that you get him back on the practice squad. I do not think that's going to happen. The way the Browns and the amount of faith the Cleveland Browns showed in Sanders in the opener against the Bengals, a couple of fourth down carries, one that resulted in a first down, another resulted in a touchdown. You don't put that kind of faith in somebody unless you actually believe it. You know what I'm saying? They weren't trying to do him a favor. They believe he can be beneficial to them. And lining up as a fullback, playing some running back, you can kind of see the vision of what the Browns are thinking, with Raheem Sanders. And the Browns maybe carry four. But if you told me they weren't going to carry four, I'd probably be more concerned about what Jerome Ford's immediate future is before I would be concerned about Raheem Sanders's immediate future. The offense kind of needs, and I think everything you look at as far as the complementary players Sunday against the Bengals, your Tillmans, your Fannons, certainly your Dylan Sampsons. I think what all three of them did was certainly, you know, a huge positive. But you need Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku to perform like Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. If those two guys were able to go out there and put up the statistical output that we are more comfortable with each one of them over their time here, then all of a sudden, you had an offense that was absolutely just exploding, having so many guys, find their pathway to statistical success. And that's certainly going to be, the key in this game against the Baltimore Ravens. There's no doubt. Because the Ravens, the Ravens had a great way of just finding things defensively. They have a great way defensively of finding things that they think the offense is most comfortable with and kind of just selling out to take that away. So basically what it is, they get you out of your comfortability level, and then you have to start focusing and trying different things, or some of the things that, are a complement to the main part of your offense. And that's why Baltimore can be successful defensively. It's what they do. They kind of get you out of your game. They kind of get you in your head, so to speak. The defense just it's got some really nice pieces. This secondary could just be absolutely scary if Malachi Starks develops, because now you just do whatever the world you want with Kyle Hamilton. And at this point, in his young career, Kyle Hamilton is built more like, I mean, it's almost closer to where he's built like an edge than an actual defensive back. And I think that as he grows and grows as a player, the Ravens just put more and more on his plate because they understand that's just, there's nothing that can really slow this kid down, and he can just really perform at any level in defense, playing the safety position, getting in there, playing some nickel, even if it's really just to, basically nickel blitz off of that, just to show you that he can be there. He can line up within 3 to 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Just an absolutely fantastic football player. And it, makes me want to put my finger down my throat to give a Raven this many compliments, of course. But, and they're aggressive. They'll play aggressive on defense. And I think that's one of the things. And, I was originally, a little short as far as, I was not thrilled with the Browns' lack of vertical opportunities or taking any opportunities Sunday against the Bengals. Well, Bengals did run a lot of too high. The whole point of that was to try to take that away, which of course led to the big days of Dylan Sampson and Harold Fenton Jr., of course. But the Ravens are going to play you really aggressive. And if they're going to play you really aggressive, you really got to play aggressive right back. And there should be some shot opportunities this week. And look, we know what Cedric Tillman did against the Ravens last year in the home game against the Baltimore Ravens. This was a team he matched up well with last year in that game. Their corners had issues with him. Jerry Jeudy is certainly no stranger to, vertical success. So, a couple of chug plays can certainly change kind of everything for this Browns offense on Sunday. And, if it means you're working in Isaiah Bond because of the speed factor, or it's Tillman, or it's Jerry Jeudy, you've got to come hard against the Baltimore Ravens. You get soft against the Baltimore Ravens, they just continue to be the hammer to your nail, and the games end quickly. And if you saw anything from the Sunday night game, that was the one thing the Buffalo Bills did not do. At no point did they go away, run away and hide. No point did they, show or make it look like Baltimore was just that much significantly better. Kind of chipped away. And, there was a little tiny part of the window open, and the Bills came storming in. Yes, you're not the Buffalo Bills. No, you don't have Josh Allen. But you've got a collective unit of guys on that field that will play together. And it's going to be certainly a huge, huge week for this team. And for me, a huge, huge measuring stick as to, what this team can be this year. Because there's going to be a lot of weeks where the chips are down for the Cleveland Browns team. And this week where it kind of looks like that, and, nobody's giving you a shot, and, the Ravens are having their fun with you. This ain't the week to go soft. This is the week to absolutely 100% go a tad bit harder if you, of course, are the Cleveland Browns. Now, if there's an issue with the Ravens offense, in my opinion, I kind of look at the offensive line, and not the offensive line as a whole. So don't confuse things there. We all know certainly about Ronnie Stanley and the player he's been there for a long, long time. But then you get to, Andrew Voorhees at the left guard position. And if everybody remembers how they got Andrew Voorhees, the Browns traded them that pick for a pick in the next year's draft. Voorhees blew out his knee at the combine. I hated it because I just said, why don't you draft Voorhees yourselves and just stockpile him away? However, and then at right guard, Daniel Falele. Daniel Falele is, I can't even describe it. If you remember, and I don't want to upset you all, but what were always the running conversations we were all having about Jedrick Wills? Why does it look like the camera is paused on him while it's live action on everybody else? That's Daniel Falele at the right guard position. Just another guy from the school of don't go hard to the whistle. Don't play at 110% full speed. All things that any one of you who ever played were coached at the lowest of levels. Don't stop. Don't ever stand still on a football field. And there's actually a highlight of Lamar in the pocket, avoiding guys, and then eventually takes off for a run. And it's probably about 9 seconds. 9 seconds of actual game footage. And after the first second, the following 8 seconds, Daniel Falele does not touch another human being on that football field. It's like a standstill, like a two-step power walk, a slight jog, but nothing. The Browns can attack the interior of this Baltimore Ravens offensive line. And you really got to, and you really kinda gotta sell out in the guard center gaps if you're the Browns defense. Because if Derrick Henry is crossing the line of scrimmage at full speed, everybody's kinda screwed. Because once he gets that full head of steam going, you're most likely going along for the ride because he's just that big. And the thing is the length of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah, you might get his ankle, but his legs are so long, he's most likely going to rip through that. He's got an extremely, extremely long wingspan. And certainly his stiff arm is an absolute positive and certainly a difference maker. And it always has been a part of his game. But if you get Derrick Henry towards the line of scrimmage where he is slowing his momentum down, he's just so big that he can't really pick it back up and take it outside on you like a lot of other smaller backs and quicker backs in this league can. So taking advantage of, 2 weak guards for this Ravens offensive line is consequential to any success the Cleveland Browns can have. Who had a monster game for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday? Ed Oliver, defensive tackle. If I'm Mason Graham, I am watching every rep of Ed Oliver against this Baltimore Ravens offensive line. And after I'm done watching at the facility, I am taking it home and I am watching it again. I also believe with Lamar, the pass rush from the interior is just as important as the edge pass rush, but probably even more so against a guy like Lamar. Because again, if you're getting through that quickly, Lamar necessarily isn't even getting through his progressions before he's having to find daylight. And if he's got to go wide, because he can't go straight up the pocket, because that's where the pressure's coming from, I think that plays really well, certainly with a guy like Miles and the way Isaiah McGuire is playing right now. And then, you're hoping that Carson Schlesinger there is certainly there for cleanup duty. And there's going to be a big one for Carson Schlesinger. Don't, fool yourselves here for a second. Last week was probably the feel-good story. Bengals ain't that great. And, certainly had his opportunities to look the part. Now, if he's able to put together another great game this week against a future Hall of Fame running back and can find some way to, get Lamar's quick, slippery can to the field a few times, then I think the Carson Schlesinger hype train is probably just out of this station and it's just not coming back anytime soon, which I'm more than okay with. I think the kid's going to be extremely special. Mentioned, of course, Nuke Hopkins there, but Bateman and Flowers are certainly the ones you have your eyes all over. Shedeur Sanders, target from Colorado. LaJohntay Wester is a starting, I believe, punt returner, for that team as well. You really, they're not lacking in weaponry by any chance whatsoever. Justice Hill has obviously always been a thorn in the side of this Browns team. I mentioned Keaton Mitchell yesterday, and if I'm going to mention him 2 days in a row, that tells you just how special I think he is. And just I think how the pairing is just so great with a guy like Mitchell, who, maybe weighs 185. But I mean, you get physically, beat up and hurt just dragging Derrick Henry to the ground. And then a guy comes in like Mitchell, who's just an absolute just water bug, just all over the place, 150 miles an hour. You guys saw last year I'm sorry, you saw 23, just how difficult of a matchup the Browns had with this guy. And, between what Hill does as a receiver, and he's a smaller, shiftier back, and Mitchell, who's nothing but small and shifty, I think it all just complements Derrick Henry so well. And then you throw in the fact that you have to deal with Lamar Jackson as a runner. The discipline to be successful against the Baltimore Ravens from the defensive standpoint is it's nuts. It really is because there could be a lot of plays and a lot of downs where we did every single thing right. And yet somehow Lamar basically threw on the Superman cape, and the next thing you know, he found 6 yards when he needed five. They're a frustrating offense to play against because they can run it. They finally got the weaponry right for Lamar to be the passer that the true ones, the real ones, knew he was going to be when he was part of that 2018 draft class. As much as I talk about the secondary for this Ravens team, which I think is absolutely fantastic, you kind of look at their, starting defensive line. Travis Jones in the middle was a darling. We all loved a few years out of UConn. Probably hasn't hit the level most thought he would be. Matt Abikwe is just a straight issue, although he is a little dinged up. Broderick Washington. But I mean, you think about it, and Tyvis Robinson is a starter. He was a fourth-round pick in 2023. Kyle Van Noy at 97 years old is still there, just an absolute pest. They spent their second-round pick on Mike Green. Onafalwe is a reserve. David Ojabo is a reserve. So anybody ever wants to point the finger at the Browns saying they miss on draft choices, there is a first and a second right there that the Baltimore Ravens missed on, because as a first-round pick and a second-round pick, you should absolutely be starting by this point in your career. Roquan Smith is still one of the top middle linebackers in the entire game. Don't let that fool you for a second. Trenton Thompson had some lapses in 24. That is why Ted Buchanan was brought in here. And if you men remember doing draft shows, I talked about Buchanan, player out of Cal that just absolutely, the film stood out. A lot like Carson Schlesinger. Wherever the ball was, it was really easy to find Buchanan. So Buchanan could be a guy that gets in there and gets some serious reps on Sunday. Bigger, definitely, than Simpson. But just a guy that knows how to read, diagnose, and make plays. We're debuting some new content here on the OBR. So, you had, of course, Monday night, you had Barry McBride, you had Pete Smith, and of course, you had Lane Atkins, the gang of three. Hope you guys got a kick out of that. Always trying to get, maybe a little bit more out of Lane. He's just, in addition to just having great information at his disposal, Lane's a really good dude. He really is. So, we're always trying to, kind of everybody trying to push him a little bit, try to get a little bit more out of him, a little more time out of him. He's just a great guy to talk ball with. And, obviously, about as well connected to this Cleveland Browns organization as anybody. Pete and Joe has been pretty good stuff. And, they definitely have a great back and forth, as somebody who's had, unfortunately, the lengthy years of back and forth with Pete Smith. You can definitely see when somebody has a great rapport with Pete. And so I guess there's more than one of us poor souls on this planet. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll absolutely do one more show for you. We'll have your pregame show. Your postgame show on Sunday as well. Definitely looking forward to this one again, because I really think that this is going to be one where we can kind of measure where these guys are at as far as, our 53 guys standing as one. Because, the anniversary parties and and certainly the disrespect by, the spread and all that. You want to talk about it, that's fine. But show me that it's aggravated you. I don't need to hear that it's aggravated you. I want you to show us that it has aggravated you. Continue to support us, please, over at theobr.com. Pick up that VIP subscription, Insider Forums, Ask the Insiders. Have it bundled, of course, with Paramount Plus. all the success that has been coming towards the OBR streaming network, it doesn't happen without you. If people don't watch, there's really no reason to keep putting out this content. And obviously, you guys keep coming out. It means the world to us. Absolutely. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things dog pound Browns 3D and the OBR streaming network. And we will talk to y'all tomorrow.